I've decided to fit some inner fender arches for the Marlin Crawler. Hopefully you can see what is going on with the clear plastic. I had a look online, and judging by the pictures I can find, couldn't find many videos, but judging by the pictures that I found, it looks to me like these need to be cut. These are original RC4WD TF2 inner fenders. Can't remember what the part number was, I've thrown the packaging away now, but the line that seems to be the one to go for is on the top ridge of here. Hopefully this will pick up on the camera, but on the upper edge, not on the lower. And again, it's always best to try and cut something large, and then you can always trim stuff off. If you cut it too small to begin with, you're in trouble. This is obviously the line here that comes out and around where it will mount to the chassis rails, but I'll cut it wide just to begin with. Sometimes I know with cutting Lexan, I prefer to use scissors, but I just find I've got a little bit more control. I know people use a scalpel. I'm always worried that I'm gonna cut too much or too little or what have you, but sort of nail scissors for me are my preferred way of doing things. So we cut this. I won't bore you with the actual cutting of it, but I just thought I'd show you where I'm marking it out to cut. Hopefully that's visible. The actual cut lines on this outer part. Again, I'll cut this long, and again quite neatly around where it will mount to the chassis. Always prefer to do it in pen first and have a bit of a look at it, double check that things look like they're going to go where they need to go. So I've just used the Dremel to try and neaten up some of the lines. With the scissors you can't always get a sort of really good cut, with the Lexan being quite flexible. So just neaten it up with the Dremel, get a nice finish. And I'll sand that down with a file in a minute just to get it really nice and smooth. But that's the first cut of the first wheel arch. It's actually on the other side, so it will be on here. I'll make some holes and we'll mount it up before we paint. Okay, so I'm just taking out the last screw here, so that we can fit this. So some of you guys might remember that one of the upgrades that the Marlin Crawler has is actually that the shock hoops are Galander 2, which offers a little bit more sort of height and perhaps a bit more movement, and the ability to have bigger shock absorbers. I've actually removed the springs from these, which is why you'll notice that they don't rebound. But in order to overcome that, I've had to cut a slot into the wheel arch liner so that we can so that it'll actually fit. So if you have a look here, hopefully this will show up, but the top of the shock hoop will pass through the slot on the top, and that way it'll enable it to push all the way down. Just needs a little bit of pressure from the back. It's a good job Lexan's quite flexible, because there we go, it is a little bit on the fiddly side. So that's how I've ended up having to do it, so that the top of the shock hoop actually passes through the wheel arch liner, and that's, like I said, just down to these being made for the trailfinder, and this particular trailfinder, the Marlin Crawler, is actually running Galander 2 hoops. So once again, I'm doing the same thing to this side of the wheel arch. I'm having to cut a slot so that the Galander 2 hoop can fit through the top. I'm using a Dremel. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Just thought I would put a bit of footage of kind of how I'm doing it. I've marked it out with a Sharpie again, and yeah, here goes. So I've done exactly the same again here, but I wanted to point out that there are, because this is a trailfinder, although it's a trailfinder 2 and it's not, or it's the Marlin Crawler edition, I wanted to just point out, if I can find something to point with, that there's a couple of subtle differences with this, and the original alignment holes back here don't actually have a thread in them. This outer one here does have a thread in it. This one does not have a thread in it, and because of where the gearbox is on the back, you can't physically get a nut on the back of this hole. However, there is a threaded, a tapped thread into the frame here, which this hole here. So instead of cutting around the original mold lines where it's meant to be cut for an original Trailfinder 2, I've left some extra on here so that I can use this thread to mount the hole. And like I did with the other side, because these are Galander 2 hoops, the hole here, the hole up here, you can't use that either because of the Galander 2 hoops. So I'll make a hole higher up on this side. This side lines up fine. That's not a problem at all. But it's mainly here is what I wanted to point out. You can only use this hole, and you have to keep some extra plastic on here to use that hole. And again, this will have to be an extremely short M3 screw. So with this side, you will need to provide 2 M3 screws. I'm going to be using an M3x6. Hopefully that comes up on the camera okay. For this hole, super short. And I'll be using an M3x10 for the other hole. So you will need to provide those for the Marlin Crawler because they're not using existing screws. The one on the front here is an existing screw, and I've just removed that for the purposes of this. But to give you an idea, I haven't neatened up the cutting as yet, but that's the Galander 2 hoop pushing through the top and also pushing through the top on the other side, and hopefully the body, I haven't tested that yet, hopefully the body is going to line up okay. Just again to reiterate that, this is just showing you where I've mounted it with the screws now. So we've got a screw on the outer one which goes in, it doesn't need a backing nut, it'll just screw in. This will screw in to the thread on the frame, and this is using an existing screw, and of course you've got the top shock, same as this side where it's holding the back of the wheel arch, and they're quite they're as sort of stable, sturdy as they need to be. And so now with the body fitted, you'll be able to see that they're a pretty good fit. There are a couple of areas where they fit particularly well around the lights here. Pretty snug up against the outside of the sort of centre section of the wing. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of a gap here. It's not huge, as you can see. It's probably only, frankly, I don't know, 4 or 5 millimeters. It's not big, it's not huge. I mean, not having fitted arches to a car before, I don't think it's going to be of any detriment to it, but slightly disappointing. Kind of wish I'd have measured a bit better so that these fit a bit better, but I think if you made them much wider at this section here, I think you might have, it was particularly fiddly as it was getting the wheel arches on as it was, but I think if you had to cut so that these were a bit wider here, I think it would be particularly difficult or fiddly, especially for a battery change. I think it would be quite annoying actually. So I'm not too worried about that, but I'm quite happy with that. It's gonna help with the looks, just those nice little details. I'm gonna paint these up, won't be leaving them clear. So one thing to remember with the Lexan, it's probably teaching or telling people pretty obvious stuff, but it's to remove this clear protective sheath. And again, it's worth remembering that, again, it's pretty obvious, but the inside is going to be subjected to a fair amount of dirt, whatever else, just to paint the outside of it. The side that will be, this is the wrong side, but the side on the, essentially the inside of the car, so that all that paint doesn't get scratched off. So just showing you that I've painted these up with Tamiya polycarbonate black. No point really in going with matte. I seem to have a lot of gloss black, but I haven't gone with matte black because on the underside with polycarbonate it's going to be glossy anyway. So one thing I would say with wheel arches or wheel arch liners, and also fitting an interior, is, and it's one thing that has always put me off before, one of the things that just put it makes it so much more difficult to actually get the body on. with so much more stuff sort of crammed around the car, it makes it a lot trickier to get everything lining up and get everything fitting. I can see it being annoying when you're outside sort of and you need to do a battery change. Here, quite difficult to see now that it's all back together, but the wheel arches are the shiny part. Here. And at the back there. Looks quite good. So in conclusion, we've just got some outside shots here of the wheel arch liner.